Good evening, everyone. It is May 15th, 2013. I'm Rene Ritchie, and tonight we're going to be talking about BBM coming to iOS. We're going to be talking about all the stuff from Google I/O, and to help me do this, I have the legendary John P. from GeekBeat.
Wow, you're so formal. You're like, good evening. I mean, you need a big bushy beard and, you know, like a jacket.
I have my,
good evening,
I have
everyone.
my big boy clothes on.
Thank you for joining me today. It was awesome. I liked it.
It was very good.
I'm setting a standard of expectations for Kevin, but we'll get to that in a second.
Oh, God.
Also joining me, Christina Warren.
The lovely and talented.
Girl, the awesome, I have to use that word because people get upset if I don't, the awesome Christina Warren from Mashable.
Awesome. Awesome to be here.
And last but certainly not least, the lovely and beautiful CrackBerry Kevin Michaluk. How are you, Kevin?
I have 3 names now. I'm very well. Thank you, Rene, for having me on your show, at my show.
Yeah, so tell everyone, I invaded your show.
Well, no, not exactly. So to set the stage, literally, we're on a stage right now. We're on an 18-inch riser in a crowd of people, TV screens behind us. We are in Orlando, Florida at BlackBerry Live. So this is BlackBerry's big annual conference. You guys have, what, WWDC?
Yep,
the
WWDC.
And every year they have this. But, you know, historically it's a BlackBerry show, but the last couple of years there's a lot more cross-platform stuff happening. It started last year with, it started with BlackBerry 10 and the new QNX platform, because there's this Android runtime on top of BlackBerry 10, which allows Android developers to move their apps easily to become BlackBerry 10 apps. And this year it's a bit of an iOS show too, because BlackBerry Messenger is going cross-platform.
I can finally talk to you.
Finally, and I will expect a response within 20 seconds.
Yeah, so to set the stage here, John, BlackBerry actually came on a stage and said that on average, or something like 50% of people respond within 20 seconds. So immediately Kevin looked at everyone on CrackBerry and wanted to make sure they knew that was the new expectation.
Yeah. That is not right, okay?
No.
I mean, I remember back in the day, you could ignore people's emails and you could make excuses like, oh, I don't think I got it. And Kevin's over here like, oh yeah, I see the little symbol that says not only did you get it, but you read it and you didn't respond to me?
Yes. Relationships have died because of things like that.
I've almost lost a relationship.
We've heard all the ways you've almost lost relationships.
You've never heard this story.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so BBM really makes a hiccup, like literally in many years, 7, 8, however long I've been a BlackBerry user and use BBM, rarely have I ever seen a hiccup in terms of the order of messages sent. But one time my better half came home from the airport and I sent her a message that said, waiting for you out front. As in, I was waiting for her at the airport out front.
Right.
She didn't see that when she came home from the airport, though. I drove her home, I dropped her off, then I actually went to the gym, and I was gone for a couple hours. At some point, she got that message, at that point, saying, I'm waiting for you out front, and she's like, who are you waiting for out front? And she's freaking out, and I don't have my phone with me when I'm in the gym. So she's calling my cell phone.
So she's not responding, and she's thinking, oh, he's got some other lovely lady.
Exactly. No, it was really bad.
Man.
And you enjoy zero credibility with this young lady, I should point out.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not a person to trust. Anyways.
In all fairness, we've heard a lot of stories from Kevin, and so I just need to make sure that I'm okay here. I just got to be in the clear, okay? I do have a Coke in a glass bottle, nonetheless.
No.
But I'm eating a cough drop. Is that okay to mix those two? Because I know you're like,
weird.
Is cough drop more of a Pepsi beverage?
Really
is it more of a Pepsi beverage?
You have a 15-minute buffer before you put any carbonated beverage.
I know, but I have to.
Yeah, so, then you're fine because it's compromised.
Okay.
It's compromised.
So it doesn't. Pepsi doesn't matter.
Let me explain this. Kevin is like a soda pop sommelier. If you have a picnic, he'll tell you the exact form of beverage, Coke or Pepsi, and in what kind of bottle you need.
And it depends on like things like the weather and what you're pairing it with, maybe even what you're wearing.
Well, in some cases, also, of course, temperature plays a huge role because because cold Coke, I think, tastes better than cold Pepsi. However,
thank you.
However,
finally,
room temperature Pepsi is far superior to room temperature Coke.
Agreed.
Chat room, does anyone else share these sentiments? Do people prefer Coke or Pepsi?
Seriously, they all think I'm nuts, and I'm
no,
like
there's a huge difference.
Weigh in now, Coke or Pepsi? Let us know in the chat room. Coke is vastly superior to Pepsi.
No, wait. Win Coke versus win Pepsi is the more important question, because they're both advocating. And Kevin's going to write some white rule book. Okay, we're waiting for the book.
Well, actually, red or white is a great example because, of course, white wine has to be chilled, whereas red wine you never want to chill. So that's actually a perfect example in that case.
This has a caramelly sweet taste.
What does this have to do with
I don't know.
Apple? Maybe
I was
there's
thinking in
maybe there's
Rene's
an
brain
app
right now,
for it.
he's like, oh my God, John P is on my podcast and we are so
This is the
derailed.
best podcast ever.
No, you know what? You know what I'm thinking is we should have a cross-platform app for this.
I
we
agree.
should.
We should.
What soda should I do? It could be like an Uber-style app.
Can it be
I'm ready
more
to book.
broad than that? Can it be what to do when? And it could be everything. We can just tell people exactly
We
how
are
to
at a
live their
developer
lives.
conference.
We are at a developer conference. Well, wait a minute, but isn't that called Google Now?
Yes.
Oh yeah, it kind of
Oh,
is.
before we get to go, so I want to ask. So we have BBM going cross-platform, and by cross-platform they mean Android and iOS.
Well, they said cross-platform beginning with iOS and Android. I don't know if that means they will fully exclude Windows Phone forever. I think it means they're going to set their priorities on iOS and Android, and hopefully Windows Phone will disappear before they ever have to bring it to Windows Phone.
Because we were talking before, and because it took so long to get BBM to market, and maybe this is a good place to look at this. Other companies sprung up like WhatsApp. All right, John, what is it?
We have a wardrobe malfunction,
have a wardrobe
and I
malfunction,
just
sorry
can't
about that.
not pay attention.
Callie has trained you all wrong.
Yeah, she has.
Or all right, I guess it depends on your point
Actually,
of
I'm
view.
immune to Callie now. By the way, where is Callie? Because she was up on the screen
was up
behind your
earlier.
entire podcast. You didn't even make mention of that. It's like
No,
big
I
deal.
did after.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Oh,
she
yeah, it's no big
abandoned
deal.
us before.
Ken's gonna come fix Christina's.
This is live TV, people.
I'm sorry. I'm sure
It's live, folks.
audio.
But I think they're intrigued by this. That's why I had to stop and call it out. See, I know what's interesting, and I know when to call it out. This is interesting.
I agree. John P's a pro.
By the way,
the
we're
P
using
stands for pro. You should really change your last name to just
John Pro?
John Pro.
the P. Usually, it stands for different things at different times. Like during the presidential election, I ran for president, so John P. stands for president.
Yep.
Makes sense.
And then it stood for other things, but now it could stand for pro. That was Ken Tran, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
Ken Tran,
awesome.
The
thank
lovely
you.
and talented Ken Tran, fixing up the microphone,
Our wizard, if ever a whiz there was.
if ever, oh ever.
So
Because,
here's my
because,
question,
because, because.
and I'm going to throw this to you, Christina. Before BBM went cross-platform, it was proprietary. So all these other things like WhatsApp surfaced, and what does that happen to apps like WhatsApp? Do they still have a place, or is it going to be more competitive? Or
Do they still have a place? Are you kidding me? No, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, this is great that BBM is going cross-platform, but let's make no mistake. There's 60 million BBM monthly users, which is great. There are 170.
60 million?
There are 170 or 180 million monthly or daily iMessage users. I don't know the exact user number figure for WhatsApp, but they send 12 billion messages a day.
but it's such
What?
a
Yes.
Yeah, WhatsApp has huge numbers. The only thing with WhatsApp, though, is there's no loyalty to it. People tolerate
Absolutely.
WhatsApp.
Well,
They use WhatsApp.
Agreed.
'cause-
like
And-
Skype.
Well,
How about GroupMe?
No, well, GroupMe is not even in the same league, and it's not even the same product. No, and look, I love the GroupMe guys. Hi, Brooke. Do not send me emails.
send Kevin emails.
No. Do not, Brooke.
I
we
love
love you.
GroupMe.
No, GroupMe is great, but it's a different sort of experience. That's for group messaging. Whereas
That's
WhatsApp
true.
can do that, but and BBM can do that as well, but it's more one-on-one. It's an IM replacement. It's an SMS replacement. BBM, it started as being. What was so great about it is that it started in an era when SMS was very expensive. And it continued to have more features than you could get with that, and the whole concept of the pen was great, and it was one of those killer apps for BlackBerry. I mean, when I got my first BlackBerry, I guess in 2004, 2005.
You were an Apple blogger using a BlackBerry for a long time.
Yes, I was. I absolutely was. I took a BlackBerry to Macworld with me, and now I've taken an iPhone with me to BlackBerry Live. So it all comes full circle, but. No, I mean, I think that it makes it more competitive, but this is already a hyper-competitive space. This is the really interesting thing, I think, about the decision to me is that they announced it now, because this space, I covered a lot at Mashable, is super hyper-competitive. WhatsApp is obviously the big dog, but then you have the more proprietary solutions like iMessage. You have Google Talk, which is XMPP, but it can work on mobile clients, and a lot of people use that. That can also integrate with SMS if you have it tied to your Gmail. Facebook Messenger is hugely popular. It's also basically XMPP. They bought a company called, now I can't think of their name, but it's
They bought Beluga a while ago,
They bought
too.
Beluga. That's the company they bought. But it's basically a standalone messenger. You don't even have to have a Facebook account, and they've also tied it in so you can use your phone number and assign a PIN that way. There's an app called Message Me, which has 2 or 3 million users. It's small, but they're doing very well. And
I'm getting a headache.
I know,
That's
so
too
many.
many choices.
Well,
How am I supposed to decide?
What
You're not.
matters is WhatsApp to talk about, because when I go into the
Yes.
iOS market or App Store, Google Play, that's the one that's high up the list.
Of course, no. WhatsApp is one of the best-selling apps on iPhone. It's one of the most downloaded apps on Android. But you're right; they don't have necessarily the user loyalty. What made WhatsApp so special for a lot of people is it supports every platform. So when it came out, it supported Symbian, supported BlackBerry OS. iPhone, Android. Now it's on BlackBerry 10. It's on Windows Phone. It will likely be one of those that's on the Firefox phone or the Ubuntu phone, so there's or the Asha or whatever.
If you make a phone, they will port it.
And it's an interesting thing because you have people in other countries where the big thing with WhatsApp over something like SMS is that because it's cross-platform, it's also a free way to message people who might live in a different country. So if you live in India and I live in the Philippines and we want to talk, the international text messaging rate is exorbitant. But if we are using WhatsApp or BBM or iMessage or something
Any
like
of the
that,
other alternatives, yeah.
it's not. I think that the one thing I would maybe hope that they do when they bring BBM cross-platform is that they at least look at how the PIN system right now works. It was great when it started out, but I think one of the things that makes WhatsApp popular is that your PIN is your phone number. So it's the same.
Okay, can I say I want to murder WhatsApp because of that? Because I've been living out of a suitcase for
Sure.
6 months, and I have to dig up my Rogers Canada SIM card to stick it in the phone to turn on WhatsApp, get my contact list there. Then I take it out and go back to my new US number. I'm like,
No, totally. And
Hey,
we
I've
should
got
make
a
it
different
editable.
question though,
an email
because
address to log
Yep,
in.
chat room.
one of the guys in the chat room, okay, Solid Rock said, now BlackBerry has zero value add.
No.
Would they give up
Oh,
their
that's-
lock-in, I guess?
that's-
is the
No.
question.
If you can get BBM, like even you and I a few weeks ago were talking about the specialness that is BlackBerry, and the first words out of your mouth are always BBM, okay?
Yeah.
Now, if I can get that on Android and iOS and everything else, what do I get for going with BlackBerry?
Keyboard.
Yeah, you
It's
get
the
a
keyboard's the hook on BlackBerry still with the
Always,
existing
always.
user base. And we're seeing with the Z10 sales, right? I mean, the Z10 is on the market now, the Q10's on the market now. I think when BB10 was coming up, I thought BlackBerry, was probably thinking Z10 maybe would even do more in terms of their product mix. There's some recent analyst reports and channel checks looking at what they're producing, and they're making 3-to-1 Q10s to Z10s
But isn't it
because they
also
know
fair,
it's
like-
the keyboard. It's not just the BBM. And things
Right.
people can leave BlackBerry once there's a cross-platform messaging alternative like WhatsApp. So as soon as that existed,
right.
in a big enough network, which WhatsApp became,
I guess it was already cutting.
It
into
was
it.
already
Cutting
cutting
it
in.
already.
And I think at this point, yeah, you're having people who the only reason they've been committed to BlackBerry is because of their contact system, and that's the only reason they're there. Yeah, they can move on.
Yeah.
But I think for other people, if anything, it almost gives you a reason to stay because now you can use BBM or you can use WhatsApp or you can use
Sure.
whatever and still be on it and not feel like this contact list is only for these 5 people. So if you enjoy the experience more, I think it would be more problematic if the alternative was BBM is cross-platform, but you can't get WhatsApp on BlackBerry. That would be a serious problem.
Yeah.
But the fact that both being cross-platform, I think that it's a net. I mean, it's a net gain,
Google's done that
net
for a
zero
long time,
gain.
right? Like you can get Google apps. We can get Google apps on iOS. They're not been so friendly to BlackBerry and Windows Phone so far, but you can get your Gmail app and your
Absolutely.
Maps app and
How are
Right.
they going to make money off of BBM if they're going to, from me, if I put it,
Trojan horse.
because I'll
my
put it
friend.
on,
It's a Trojan horse.
I'll
Well,
put
they
it on
say
my
that.
phone so I can communicate with CrackBerry Kevin through his precious
But he'll
BBM.
have more better
Then what? How
BBMs
they
than
gonna
you.
get
It's
money
like
out
it's
of
the
me?
same as the Google thing. Like the best Gmail experiences on Android. So people who are totally invested on Google end up
You think?
using it. Well, some people end up using an Android device just because it's the best Google experience, and some people maybe will go like they'll
Except
get.
Maps is
hooked
better
on
on
So
iOS.
you know what they're doing,
All their apps are
right?
better on iOS, but we don't say that out
You're
loud.
going to have to create a BlackBerry ID
Which I did.
to use BBM on iOS or Android.
Okay.
So this is, what matters the most to these big companies these days is eventually and ultimately having an email address tied to your credit card number, because that means you got options in the future. That's value.
Can we just pause and ask the chat room? What are you using for IM? Are you using iMessage? Are you using Google Talk? What are the other alternatives? WhatsApp,
WhatsApp,
Kik, Skype,
Skype is a big one for a lot of people.
Facebook. I was going to almost call it FaceTime.
No, Facebook is a big one too. I think that it's weird. I think I always go to our interns to kind of see
Viber in
what's
the
the
chat room?
popular Viber, and then Viber just came to desktop, which is a big deal.
So Marcus, who was right there before, Marcus, our CEO, he was complaining that BBM and doesn't have, and even Google Hangouts, the new Google Hangouts, talk about in a minute, they don't have desktop clients. But for example, Skype and iMessage, you can just sit there and wail away at them on a desktop.
Right. Well, okay, Google Hangouts actually does. It has a web app.
That's right. It'll go through Jabber. Also as
Well, right, because it uses XMPP.
Yeah.
So that's not going to change. And they have a Chrome app and they have like a web app for it. So it might not be native, but Google. By and large, never does a native actual desktop app. They've done very few, Mac photo uploaders
Chrome.
and
You
stuff.
get Chrome and you're happy.
You get Chrome, and we are happy. But I think the BlackBerry, honestly, I think they need a web version of BBM. I think that'd be huge, especially if they're looking at trying to make a bigger enterprise play and making it for group communications.
So if you look at BBM channels, which also got announced this week.
Can you say what they are before we...
So yeah, BBM channels is something they announced. Total surprise to me, not something any of us in the BlackBerry community were expecting. It's kind of like Tumblr meets... maybe a little like Twitter / BBM groups, which was an existing feature, all mashed into one. So, I can create a channel in my BBM message list. I go into the channel section. I say, I want to create a CrackBerry channel, or Rene could create an iMore channel. From there, people can opt into the channel and they subscribe to it, much like you would subscribe or follow Twitter, Google+, etc. And then from there, I can make posts to all my followers.
Is it a one-to-many? It's only one-to-many, not everybody to everyone. It's not a community thing.
And you can optionally turn on to accept one-to-ones.
No, what he means is, can people in the community talk to one another?
No, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they can talk back to you. So it's
a broadcast.
It's a broadcast.
It's a broadcast media, yes.
Absolutely.
So it's more of a Facebook if you don't have comments turned on or something like that.
Yeah, but it's locked in, right? So like compared to a Google Plus, where you're resharing things across Google
But
Plus,
it's targeted to businesses and brands, right?
Yeah, I think it's the BlackBerry's thing of creating like intimate relationships.
It's like Twitter without the retweets. Really?
Well, I think your combination of Twitter and Tumblr is probably apt because Tumblr is the one that I actually
think
is
ups, there's comments, and you can also go.
Well, and the thing with
check
Tumblr
out
is
Discord.
Tumblr is very much a broadcasting. Now they have ask and they have reply to posts, and you can of course reblog and see someone's comment on it. But it's not as if unless you add in discuss or something, you don't get comments in Tumblr. It's strictly I'm sharing this out, and then you get all your notifications and you see what other people have done through your dashboard. And I'm assuming with channels, it'd be the same thing. You see what's happening from the channels you follow.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing now when we're talking about the web console. So one of the limitations of channels right now in the current beta version is you can only have a channel's tied to your BBID, right? And you can only have one BBID on a BlackBerry. So for something like us with CrackBerry, where we have a dozen writers, I want to give access to that thing. I have the CrackBerry channel on my one phone, but there is a web interface, so I can at least give them.
You can at least give them that.
Give them that login, but then I can see it. But I think that's at least the step to having a web console.
I have to say they have to fix that at launch because the core user for this product is brands and celebrities, and brands and celebrities are managed by multiple teams.
Yeah.
And the celebrities don't like to give up their password to other people to enter in because then they get phished, they get hacked. Someone tweets from Alicia Keys from an iPhone.
Stuff happens.
Yes. Stuff happens. So you need to have a way that you can have multiple user credentials siphoned in. Like Twitter still doesn't do that, but the advantage is there are things like Hootsuite and other social management. There are a ton of social management systems.
It amazes me that people don't do this. I mean, I am flabbergasted by it. When we built Woopra originally, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's a web analytics company. When we originally built that, and I was sitting down with my partners, that was the first big demand I had. I mean, they had built a system, and I went back to them. I said, look, we have to be able to give people the ability to have teams.
Of course.
And of course, the first thing they did was they complained to me. They gave me lots of pushback, and I said,
no, that's your killer. That's your killer feature.
Absolutely, are going to do it. 2 weeks later, guess what? The whole thing was done. 2 weeks. 2 weeks, okay? Why the hell would they not all do this?
No, well, because the problem with a lot of the social tools is that they were developed for consumers and then they become co-opted by brands and businesses. And you see growing pains. You saw it with Facebook, you saw it with Twitter. Twitter is getting better. They have teams, but they still don't have a great team login. So for instance, our Twitter password is very securely guarded. We use certain apps for it, but it's problematic because we can't let it get into the wrong hands. Whereas on Facebook, you can have multiple page administrators.
Or if someone leaves, you got to change it again for everybody.
It's so easy to build that in,
right?
And have revocable credentials.
Which Facebook has,
so
and which to their credit, Google has. Google Plus. You have page managers. You can make things that way. Like I'm an administrator on a Google Plus account. I'm an administrator administrator on our Facebook pages. But you can, and then but you can revoke that. You know, if Christina got really drunk one night, you know, someone to say Christina's not allowed to post on Facebook. But no, so I think that for BB channels, especially when your core constituents of people who are creating the channels are going to be brands and celebrities, they have to have a way for multiple people to be able to attach to that channel. Because, for instance, to me, I'm thinking, okay, media publishers, that's the perfect use for that, right? It's a great way to follow everything that's happening, see all the BB messages and status updates from the staff. You know, it should be able to pull in a feed of that stuff. But if it's just you being able to tweet out, or not tweet out, but beep them out, channel, then A, puts a ton of responsibility on you, and B, you know, it limits.
To like reread what I wrote.
You just got kind of scared. I saw like
scared.
Kevin.
I don't want responsibility. No, one thing I like that they did with channels, and it's one of the things that's very BlackBerry. BBM historically had that exclusivity feeling, like that's, you know, celebrities used it because I give out my pin, it worked, right? With channels, they're kind of doing that where there's no public listing of how many subscribers you have, and this is one of the things I hate about Twitter and Google Plus.
Well, that's what Tumblr does too.
Yeah, this vanity. Yeah, and that's what makes it good. This vanity metric of how many people are subscribing to you. Then people are buying Twitter followers, buying Google Plus followers. All this crap happens.
No,
and this
you're done.
becomes just about the service, what you want to provide. It's very pure.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think that's one of the best things Tumblr does is that the user knows how many followers they have, but it's not displayed to anyone else, and you can't figure out that information.
Well, you screenshot it and you insert it into the Tumblr log.
Right. Well,
over and over.
No, you screenshot it and you make it your little avatar.
No, you screenshot it, then you Instagram it.
Yeah,
then you Instagram it to Tumblr. That's what you do.
Oh yeah, you
have to apply the filter, and you know make.
We don't want to see any unfiltered.
I don't want to be in this room.
So we had that all yesterday. BBM coming to iOS, and today we had Google I/O, whose keynote went on so long. I hope Phil Nickinson packed a lunch, because I left and I came back 2 hours later and the same guy was on stage.
Oh yeah, no, it was a 3-hour plus keynote.
Yeah, it made the PlayStation 4 event look.
Yeah, I was gonna say the PlayStation 4 event. Which
might still be going on.
No, it ended. We were all very hungry.
Yeah, it was. I don't understand. Please, you don't have to say everything on stage.
Well,
no one knows what it looks like. Does it use discs? It took me 3 days and 4 press people to find out if it would use discs or not.
I think what these companies are doing is they've decided that their ability to go direct to consumers with information is so awesome that they're just trying to say everything themselves.
It's a fire hose.
Well,
there's a problem with that too.
You know what it really is? It's as always, it comes back to Apple, and it's Apple's fault. Apple dominates the news cycle for their events, and Apple's unique in that they don't have to offer a public live stream, and people will sneak in and will do it anyway and will get kicked out. Or they can offer a live stream that's only viewable on iOS devices, and people will, you know, use it historically. Apple will dominate the entire news cycle that day. If you want to announce some really terrible news, the best possible time to do it is during an Apple event, because no one's going to know.
Yeah.
So these companies now, and this is one of the reasons why big trade shows like CES and Mobile World Congress and even things like NAB are lessening in significance, because companies in E3 would rather have their own events. But they want to be able to dominate the news cycle. So Google's trend, the whole thing today to make it 3 hours long is that they just wanted to dominate the news cycle. They wanted to make it so that if you go to Google News...
What's that called in politics when they just keep talking until someone gives
filibuster.
Filibuster. Yeah. So Samsung did the musical and Google did the filibuster.
But the problem with the Google filibuster or any of these is that I know the way these marketing people's minds work, okay? They think that they can just go out there and spew their story to the market and it's just going to be accepted. And your average consumer has gotten smarter than that, even about the direct delivery of information, and they want to hear from experts.
Oh no, they want the nuance.
Will not buy until they have opinions from people like us, for example, who have played with 12 other competitive products, seen those features all over.
Can we ask them, did you guys think a 3 hour, does a 3 hour keynote hold your interest? Apple's usually an hour, 2 hours. When they do the app demos for an hour and a half, I want to shoot myself. Do you guys want to watch an entire keynote? Will you watch an entire keynote?
But it's not about, they don't expect people to watch the whole thing. They expect people to go in and out. But here's what it is.
Yeah,
They want
absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
No, but you know what it
David
is?
said absolutely.
They want to get multiple stories out. So the thing is, you're absolutely right, John. People want the nuance. They want the commentary. That will
Hell
come.
no.
And the thing is that's what they know. What that means, though, is that means that we're going to, CNBC will spend 2 days talking about Google I/O,
Yep.
which CNBC before, when they would make it a smaller thing, would make one segment on it and it would be one thing, all right? This is going to be, some of the stuff they announced will be on the Today Show tomorrow morning, I guarantee you, which never would happen before. And that's the sort
But
of
it's
mainstream
going to take
stuff
someone
they
like
get.
you to go there and explain it to them, because after 3
Yes.
hours they have no. They're sitting there.
That's
like
the
this.
thing.
Absolutely, but that's fine. But what it means for Google is that Google will have someone like me talking about it, and that gets it in people's mind. This is an important thing, and I should care about this. And so you're right. I think that they don't care so much about so many people tuning into the whole 3 hours, but dominate that news cycle and be important enough that you have to have the more mainstream coverage come in and have experts talk about it, which then in turn feeds the cycle of giving you additional publicity.
You look.
Kevin,
Yeah, I want to say something because so this is one thing people don't think about. There's two ways to play it with these companies doing their keynotes. Some, like Apple, they do a keynote when they have a product to launch.
Yep.
And that whole keynote is geared around let's announce a product and
This is
go
what
through
we're
it,
announcing. This
and
is
they
it.
can
This is
make
what we
tight.
just announced.
Then you have something, let's say, like BlackBerry Live. This week, they're signing the contract for this venue for next year.
Yeah.
They've been doing that for 7 years. They don't know if they're going to be ready to announce a hot new product there or not.
Right.
So when it comes to managing media expectations, it's really interesting because, they want to bring out press, they want to tell their
Absolutely.
story. But like, let's say even in yesterday's keynote, they announced that BBM is going cross-platform, but they're not ready to show it to you on a device.
Right.
They got it working, but it wasn't a BBM. Here it is, it's ready to go.
Yeah, coming in 2 weeks.
The Q5, okay, it's ready to show off. It's actually working pretty darn well, but it's launching this summer. They don't do a product show. They do an annual conference. This is their time of year where they bring everybody together because for them, this is a business conference.
Right.
There's carriers here, there's CIOs,
Well, absolutely.
CTOs. So it's really funny because when I watch the headlines across the web, it'll be like, oh, this is BlackBerry's keynote and this is all they did. And it's like, this
Right.
is their show that they put on every year.
Precisely.
And whatever falls kind of in line that they're comfortable talking about, they do.
Right.
So, and Google I/O is kind of in the middle,
It
right?
is in the middle because it's a full developer conference, but it's
Yeah.
also their one time a year. I mean, they have lots of events every year, make no mistake. They have, just like Facebook does, and Facebook has F8, but what they typically tend to do is use this as kind of their moment to do everything. And last year they had 2 or 3 keynotes. So I don't know, I think that the point was to capture all of the media attention in one day and then be able to have it dispersed throughout the rest of the
Yeah.
week. Whether it worked or not, I don't know. I think it probably worked well for them because even non-tech sites was all about Google today. Google completely
Was it
dominated
fair
the
to
news
say,
cycle.
though, I mean, 2 years ago, Google I/O, they came out, they announced a ton of stuff, and they delivered almost none of it.
It doesn't
Then
matter.
last year they came out, they announced a bunch of stuff, and they actually shipped most of it, though they did take the Nexus Q back.
Of
this
course.
year it feels to me like it was a more realistic Google I/O.
Well, this year, what's happened, I think, is that, and we see this week at BlackBerry, where hardware has reached a level, and we've seen this with some of the other big superphone releases, hardware is plateaued at a certain point. The growth that was so exponential is no longer there because they're so good and they're so great that it's really right now about optimizing software. So almost everything we saw from I/O was all about software, almost all of it. And, they announced, that there will be a Nexus 4 or a Galaxy S4 running pure Google, but we didn't see a new
16 gigabytes.
Right. Well, we didn't. Well, which is what the one is that ships. They're just now shipping the 32 gig S4. That's fine. It has an SD card slot, so who cares? But they didn't announce new stuff coming to glass. They didn't show off another Google TV device. Thank God. They didn't.
There was no Nexus Q2.
No, but there was also no Nexus 7 too.
Yeah.
So I think that the trend in general right now, just in the whole industry, is less about big hardware show off and more about software. And right now, that's the big differentiater across all
the
devices.
hardware is
Until
good enough.
Motorola comes and announces some
But they did,
beautiful
like, they
hardware.
changed
And then
Google
no one will
Hangouts.
buy
Right?
it.
They announced a new
Depends what they
version
do
of
with the
Google
software.
Hangouts. They basically made a BBM. It's not BBM-like, but it does do messaging. It does do photographs.
It's very
They
similar.
needed it because Google Hangouts suck.
Well, now
Seriously,
Google
they suck.
So
Well,
Google
but-
Hangouts have the potential to be amazing. I mean, we use them like
Yeah.
a dozen
Yes.
times
So does
a day.
YouTube
Absolutely.
Live.
They do so many things
It
that
sucks.
make me just want
But,
to.
And
but
by
it's
the
probably
way,
the best feature they
What
have.
sucks about it? Before, just so people have your opinion on it. What sucks about Google Hangouts?
Oh, about Google Hangouts?
For me, it's the quality. People just start stammering, and the video quality degrades
The
rapidly.
quality is poor. I do not at all like the fact that the way that it does the auto shifting of images. It's it's novel.
Someone coughs, they're full screen.
But you can wear a mustache while you're talking.
Yeah, it's
Or you can write
novel, but
scripts
it's
and
not
change your
ideal.
face.
Well, yeah, that's awesome.
Skype does much better group video.
Yes, but
and
Skype costs money.
It does, And also services like GoToMeeting, for example,
they absolutely
much
do.
better,
Skype videos
and
better
they cost.
than Google Hangouts?
Oh my God,
The
yes.
video quality.
Video
is
quality.
phenomenal.
Quality
So-
with like 3 people though, but when you go like
It's-
10,
it's-
No, and at that point, you really need to go with Cisco. At that point, you really need to use one of their solutions. Honestly, if you've got that many video
a big
conferencing,
enterprise.
at that point,
Yeah.
what you need is a dedicated server to that. You need to have dedicated equipment.
You gotta say the word-
Moderated
You got to
too.
say the word
Moderated
telepresence, or they get
video.
upset with you.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
sorry,
Well,
yeah,
no,
Cisco,
sorry. Yeah,
yeah.
you got to use telepresence. No, but genuinely, if you're at that
Yeah.
level, but I think that for a lot of people, like my husband, the company that he works for, he does his daily Scrum meeting. It was just an agile development term. He does his daily Scrum meeting over Google Hangouts. Our developers at Mashable, they all communicate over Google
do too.
Hangouts.
We
You
do
guys
too.
do it. It's become a great free tool. I think the problem has been, when they try to use it for brands and for other, big events, it's more problematic. We can do the one-on-one stuff where we control who's in the channel and go straight to YouTube, and that's great. But then you can't. It's not as easy to get in like real-time chat feedback and other stuff.
There's another huge problem with Google Hangouts that is also applicable to universally all Google services, which is an entire, complete, and utter lack of support.
Yes.
If you have you cannot rely on a Google product for business, because if something goes critically wrong, there is
community of people as
literally no
confused
one
as you to
call.
talk to.
That's right. There's literally no one you can call.
No,
You
there's
can't even
not a
say,
phone
"I'll
number."
give you money if you will help me." It's just not the way that
Put your
they
hands
do
back
it.
in your pocket, sir.
Yeah. So,
So I know you have to get going. We talked a little bit about Google Hangouts. They have group messages now, messages, pictures in messages. You can do video, talk. Is that
File's going to come to.
Files? Yeah. Is that a BBM-like solution? Is that a competitor now?
I mean, on a feature-by-feature, bullet point list, yeah, there's definitely a lot of encroachment into BBM's territory there. What's going to happen and how is it going to play out? I'm not so sure. Look, Google Talk grew big, but it never became ubiquitous.
It just replaced AIM is basically all it did.
No one was passionate about it.
I think Google Hangout is a horrible name for an instant chat. I look at WhatsApp being not a very good quality product, but taking off because it did what it had to do well enough.
Right.
Google sometimes makes products where I think that it's almost like you have to be smart to figure it out, and it scares people off a little bit from the simplicity that just needs to be there and work.
Sure. I mean, one thing I will say though, the Hangouts app on iOS is beautiful, and people have pointed out to me that my Android version has not updated. I take back
It's apparently
my
a known
thing.
issue. People are having trouble with it.
But it's really beautifully designed. It's really, really beautifully designed, and
No, it looks good.
The user interface is great, the user experience, and Christina pointed out, I don't know if this concerns you, you have to have a Google Plus account, which means they have to have an identity on you, and some people have legitimate reasons to be anonymous when they want to do tax.
Well, for me, it's not even about an anonymous thing. It's that I don't want 6 different Google Plus accounts all for the same name. I wish that I could attribute this number of email addresses that are Google email addresses, that are Google Apps hosted accounts to this profile, and do a thing where it's verified that this is connected to it. I can disconnect it at any time.
Like we do with iMessage.
all right, I
Precisely.
got to call out a few chats
Do
here.
it.
Okay.
Do it.
Number one, Rawls in North Carolina said Christina knows her bleep.
Thank you very much.
And also, the question, somebody, let me see. Oh yeah, All Good said, does she have 3 phones with her?
I do have 3 phones with
You-
me. I have the iPhone 5, I have the BlackBerry Z10, or Z10 as
I like
we
Z10.
say.
We're in the States, Z10.
And I've got the Galaxy S4.
Awesome.
And
I
actually,
thought it was an S3.
well,
It looks the same.
it's the Galaxy
Zing.
S3s. And then here's what's funny, guys. In my bags, I've got a Q10, a Lumia 928, an Xperia something, a Nexus 4, and another Z10.
She's a
You must
super
be great
geek.
at customs.
She's a super geek.
Yeah.
Okay, and then David said, Pose, when I made the comment that you can't rely on Google for business, okay, I know I was exaggerating a little. He says, I use them for my business email, and I've had a fantastic user experience. The reality is, all GeekBeat email goes through Google
Yeah.
Gmail.
Same with
all
Ours
of
as
that.
well. Everything we do. Yep.
I mean,
Google
there's-
Apps.
It is, but God help you.
Yes.
Oh, when it
I
went
don't care
down?
who you are. I don't care if you're Pete, if you're Callie, I don't care who you are.
If you're Larry
If you
Page's
have
sister.
If you have a problem and you need to call somebody, good luck. We were with Google, with YouTube, we were one of the first 4 that started beta testing YouTube Live with them. Now, I cannot tell you how much pain we went through putting GeekBeat on YouTube Live in the early days, and how much we worked with them and gave them feedback. I mean, if we were to charge somebody for that, it'd be a lot, okay? And all we were really hoping for was, you know, as this live thing gets going, at least we'll have contacts, we'll be well supported, it'll be good, okay? And within a few months, the people who we were working with,
They moved departments.
They moved because nobody stays in a Google job more than a year.
Right.
And so they had moved on. They're not good at transitioning to other relationships. And so at this point, we are think about this. We were one of the first 4 ever on that live platform. I literally don't have a contact at at YouTube anymore.
If you work at YouTube, can you please pick up the phone? Can you call this man?
Matt, can you call John, please?
And I mean, just think about that and how that bodes for your average users.
Absolutely. No, you're dead on. I mean, and I think that's one of the reasons why they tried to design their services for the 80% of users.
Yeah.
Right. They try to do it for the 80%, and then you have those edge cases. And there are some people, like when they do universities, for instance, I do know for a fact with the Google Apps for Education, they have like an on-site person, but you have to. If you're talking about having 20 or 30,000 email accounts, and you're talking about taking serious business away from Microsoft, then yeah, you better have a dedicated accounts person. But even then, for a tech support challenge, it's not the easiest thing to do because of how their systems are set up, you know?
Yep.
So what else we got? We also got Maps coming to the iPad, which is nice.
Now they
Google Maps?
Google Maps to the iPad.
Thank God, because I love Google Maps, but I will not use it on this thing because
You
it's
don't
a
want to double
stupid...
it. Doubling, yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Why did that take so long? What was it? Why couldn't they just make it the first
You know what?
time?
Because I think what's happened is that they were already in the process of doing a redesign of how the whole Maps interface looks, and they probably wanted to push it out to iPhone where they knew they needed it and where they'd get the most use, and then figured, okay, once we finish redesigning and we're already in the process of doing a major overhaul of the system, then we'll push it out, is my guess, but I don't know. And I think also because the browser version works decently on the iPad.
I've never tried that.
It actually works
and
quite
they announced
well.
the browser version is going to go to WebGL for the rendering, which is interesting because WebGL, people are concerned about security because you got to harden the driver onto the interface, and we don't know how that's being done yet.
They've been testing it on WebGL on the desktop for quite some time, you know, and I've had it enabled for a while. Now, here's the question I have in context of BlackBerry. Did they announce anything? Because I was covering a BlackBerry show. I wasn't at Google with seemingly everyone else. Did they announce anything in terms of an API level for the web version, so that companies like BlackBerry would be able to better integrate Maps, even if they don't have native support?
Or Microsoft, who's still trying to get a YouTube app. Yeah.
Well, but that's a completely different issue. That becomes a competitive thing, rather than I'm talking about a Maps, which is something where they could conceivably, you know.
Absolutely, I don't have an answer. If anyone in the chat room, we have some Android Central people in the chat room, so if you were following I/O, let us know. They want to know, how do you know which phone rings? Like, if a phone rings, how long does it take you to find the right one?
Well, okay, first of all, I don't usually have all of them. All of them are on vibrate, so I just, whichever one vibrates. I've got a Pebble watch on, though, so if I get a call or a text on my iPhone, then my
Pebble
wrist...
now works on BlackBerry 10.
The
Saw it
iPhone
earlier
is
today.
the primary, I
Unofficially,
guess.
somebody
Yes.
just built it. It works
Oh, that's
without,
awesome.
without permission. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool. We'll do
Hey,
that
How are we
later
doing
on.
on time, Ken?
Shoot, yeah,
How long
we
we
get that
been
working.
going?
If you guys want, we'll even
40
demo it.
minutes.
We're having
Yeah,
five?
no, we should. It's,
Wow, yeah, I guess we should. We've been talking for 40 minutes.
Have we seriously?
Okay, I'm gonna jet out then. You guys should talk for at least
Go
another 20,
already.
because I gotta go win an award.
You
Oh, do it.
stayed
What are you winning your award for?
Well, I think
brag about your team.
Our CrackBerry 10 app is in the running for like best BlackBerry 10 built for BlackBerry app. So
Do it.
I think we're gonna win. So I'm gonna get
Bye,
on stage.
Kevin.
Go
Thank
pick
you
up
for
your...
having
me. Kevin.
What do they
Bye,
call
Kevin.
the award?
It's a cracky.
They should call it a cracky. I like that.
The chat room is
Alright.
saying good luck. Andrew's saying good luck, Kevin. All right, so John, you use iOS. You have an iPad with you right now. I know you have a Galaxy Note 2 that you
Yeah,
like
that's
You
my
look like a
primary.
moron talking on.
My primary is the Galaxy 2,
So
the Note 2.
What do you Google supports all the platforms. BlackBerry is now supporting all the platforms. Microsoft has
Wait
apps-
a minute. What do
well,
you
no,
mean
so
by
they don't,
all the
So
platforms?
let me rephrase this. BlackBerry is now making apps for iOS and Android. Google's making apps for iOS and Android. Microsoft is making apps for Microsoft and iOS. So everyone
Oh,
is
and
making
Android. There's an Outlook.com app
That's
for
true.
Android,
That's
and
true.
it's very good.
But it's Apple. So everyone is making an app for iOS. Apple's making an app for nobody.
Of course not.
Yeah, what? We're
Why?
Apple.
Of course.
So is that a, do we need
Steve Jobs
No.
would come out of his grave and start. It would be.
What about glasses of water in hell, John?
No, because
supernatural all over again.
okay. Look, there's one exception. There's one huge exception to that. iTunes.
Yeah, because they could
Now-
conceivably
That
sell
is
media.
true.
Okay, but that's actually, I think this makes the entire differentiation. iTunes, the only reason that the iPod became so successful was because of Windows.
Yes.
Period. Bottom line. When the iPod was first announced, I had been a long time mini disc user, and I would transfer from my sound card MP3s to mini disc, and that was my cheap MP3 player alternative. I was in high school. I was a freshman in college when the iPod was announced, and I loved the idea, but it only worked with a Mac. Now, at the time, I used Macs at school, but I didn't have one for my college computer because OS 10.0 had just come out, and God help you if I was going to be on the original version of OS 10. And so I came very close to buying one and then just using an app called FPod to control it on the FireWire port on my computer, on my Windows machine. But then Apple announced at Macworld 2002 that they were bringing out a Windows version of the iPod. And that was a huge, huge moment. And that was the single thing that helped, I think, more than any other decision that Steve Jobs made and any other decision Apple's made in the last 10, 15 years that helped shape them into the company they are now, which is that they made the iPod work on Windows.
I would argue, I would agree, and I would go so much further to say the only reason that Apple is in the position it's in now was that one decision.
I agree. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm in 100% agreement. I mean, genuinely, from all the wonderful things he did, the iMac, the iBook, all that stuff. No, the
all
one
that's
thing
great.
That's great. But we would not have an iPhone. They would not be one of the most wealthy companies in the world. They would not be, despite what the stock performance might be, despite the other stuff, they would not be Apple as we know them today in this juggernaut if they had not made the iPod work on Windows.
Because that's what allowed them to leech off the window.
Exactly.
Because people were hardcore Windows
Yes,
back
they were.
then.
Yes, they were.
They hated Apple. They were like, oh, you're an idiot.
And then what happened is that you had a halo effect where people loved the iPod and they liked iTunes and they tried a Mac. And then another genius move, which was transitioning to Intel. And when that happened, and you could run Boot Camp, or you could run Parallels, and people could have their Mac on it. And then the timing was so perfect because that coalesced with Vista and the abortion that was.
They lowered the barrier of entry at the time when people
there was a time where people had a halo effect for a product that people liked, and then the competitor stumbled, and now you had the opportunity to run it on the other hardware and get the best of both worlds. And then you had a whole new generation of users coming up, primarily using Apple in college, who are then going into the workforce and demanding to use Apple in their jobs. And it sets a whole stage. But I think that the reason that they don't have to do that right now is because the main thing that they would want to do that for would be services, okay? And so right now their core services are things like iMessage and iCloud, which does work well on Windows, and you can access, because they're open standards, you can access your iCloud email and your contacts and
IMAP,
and your
CalDAV,
IMAP, right? You can't get
Hey, by the way, I don't want to interrupt, but this is totally cool, and I don't want you guys to miss this. So Ken is adjusting our cameras right now since Kevin left the stage. He wants us to be framed up. But notice, you see that little tablet he's using?
Yep.
That is a Windows 8 touchscreen tablet. He is switching the cameras, walking around wirelessly with that.
That's awesome.
How awesome is that?
I love the future.
We're living in the future, yeah, absolutely.
But I think that, where you look at Apple's core services right now, you don't have that necessity for people to leave the ecosystem. If you have Windows, you can still, most iPhone users, realistically, are Windows users.
Absolutely.
Well, just you look at the numbers sold and you look at their share of the market, most iPhone users are Windows users. So they do make sure that their software works
Most
well
of our
in
readers
Windows.
are Windows users.
Absolutely, and so when you look at that perspective, the decision to make an app for another platform would have to be a services place. So if they were to do that, the only thing I could ever see them doing would not be a music store, would not be an app store, because those are things you can buy music on your computer, and they're not going to, if they would even be allowed on Android or on other devices, we're getting around that, would be...
But before you go on, Amazon does that. So Amazon will let you buy Amazon Music on an iPhone, and let you buy it on a Mac, on a Windows. And I think that's what confuses people, is that the difference in business models.
But it's a completely different approach, because Apple is an integrated services and hardware company,
Yes.
and the services are designed in part to keep you bonded
They
to the
sell
hardware.
media so that you buy their
Yes,
hardware.
exactly.
But
Whereas
people think that Apple would benefit somehow by selling media to Windows users
No.
because there'd be
Well,
greater
no, but they do
volume
sell
media.
media to Windows users. They do sell media to Windows users. They just don't do it on Windows Phone.
On mobile, yes.
And I think still most people primarily do not buy their music and videos
Yes.
on mobile. You know, maybe on the iPad, but right now the only tablet that matters is the iPad, and to a lesser degree the Kindle Fire, right? So you're looking at the only reason they would need to, the only app I could see them possibly releasing for another platform would be an iCloud viewer app if they were able to make iCloud work better. But at this point, I don't think enough people are using iCloud as a storage
Or
system.
FaceTime, maybe if the lawsuits ever get settled.
Well, FaceTime, they were supposed to make more multi-platform, but even then, I think what would behoove them more than FaceTime would be iMessage.
Yeah.
That would actually be interesting if you could communicate using the iMessage interface with someone on another platform. But again, that becomes the BlackBerry quagmire. Do you lose exclusivity? Do you lose your leverage?
Well, it's
Part
funny.
of one of the benefits of getting an Apple everything is that your whole system works together. That doesn't mean you can't use it with another system.
Yeah.
Just as if I've had great success using a Windows Phone with a Mac. And to be completely honest, when I was testing Windows Phone 8 for 10 days, I locked up my iPhone, I forwarded my number, I only used a Windows Phone. Because my company is on Google Apps, this is before all the EAS drama happened, all of my mail was coming through on Google accounts and synced on Google servers and some other things, you know, things with Dropbox, but I was by and large using, you know, a Microsoft device with Google, you know, data in the cloud and connecting it to a Mac.
You won!
We won!
Congratulations! Breaking news, the CrackBerry app has won the best
Awesome.
built
Read
for
us-
BlackBerry
read us
app.
the plaque.
CB10.
That is so
Developer
awesome.
Community Awards, best built for BlackBerry app.
Congrats to the team.
That's
And you heard it
awesome.
on the iMore show.
Congratulations.
That's right.
Yes, damn it, you.
I scooped you.
That's right. That's awesome.
That's amazing.
You were going to say something about.
I was just going to say, you're totally right. If you want a single ecosystem for just everything, like I just want simplicity in my life, nothing beats the Apple ecosystem.
Right.
Period.
Chat room's calling you a genius, by the way, sir.
But it's interesting that if you want best of breed, you have to go to every one of these providers. Like, for example, I mean, it sounds pretty universally agreed that BBM on BlackBerry is the best of its breed.
Right.
Skype is still the best of what it does.
Owned by
That's
Microsoft.
Microsoft,
Yep.
okay? Google's Gmail is the best.
Yes.
None of them have a reasonable storage platform. You need to go
Dropbox.
to Dropbox
Yep.
or the new copy.com is also pretty good.
Yeah, no, but it's Dropbox.
Dropbox is the default at the moment, you know. So you have to make a decision in your life. Do I want simplicity, or at the cost of the best of everything, or do I want the best and get complexity?
But
It's
got,
simplicity,
like, that's the
or
old like the old business thing was always, do I buy the single service
Well,
provider
that was
or the
why
best
IBM.
of
Well,
breed
that's why
solution?
people never get fired for buying IBM.
Yes.
Because IBM would sell
Or
it all.
Oracle after that.
so what
or
should you do
Microsoft.
today?
Yeah.
I mean, should people just all be on Apple? Should it just be
You know what, I
Apple
think it
because
depends.
it's one
Apple because
thing?
it runs Gmail, it runs Dropbox, it runs Skype.
I was going to say that. I was going to make that argument. That's actually, I think this is why, right here, that exact thing is why Apple doesn't have to break out of that sandbox.
Yeah.
If a time comes where people are not developing for Apple, then Apple needs to start looking at developing for other people. Because if you notice, Google created Apple iOS apps before Android existed, all
Yes.
right? When iOS App Store launched, there were Google apps in the App Store.
Google Maps, YouTube.
YouTube,
yeah.
well, but not even talking about the defaults. I'm saying like there was a Google search app. There
Yes.
was like a Gmail. You know, we did.
It was awesome. You could lift it and talk.
Right. I mean, they had all kinds of those services. Microsoft the same way. Their first iPhone app was a photo.
Something Dragon.
No, it was PhotoSynth.
PhotoSynth, yeah.
It was a photo app that had a really interesting user
PhotoSynth
interface.
is awesome.
Yes.
And if there is anything that I wish made it big and cross-platform,
Yep.
it is that. That is the coolest.
Can you just say maybe what
photography-
PhotoSynth is quickly?
Oh yeah, if you guys have never seen it, sure.
amazing.
Is it still? It's still out there,
Yeah. I
right?
think it's
Do
out there,
search
yeah.
for PhotoSynth. Here's what. Let me give you an example of how you'd use it, rather than telling you what it is. We're at this conference. There's 4,000 or 5,000 people here. They could be walking around this whole conference taking all kinds, I mean, tens of thousands of photos. PhotoSynth would take all of those pictures, put them together into a virtual kind of 3D
Like a collage.
photos.
Yeah, they did it with the Smithsonian, where you could
Yeah.
look at all the documents ever. Like
You just-
like the amazing
Daniel
stuff.
was doing it at
it
TM13
stitches-
on his Windows phone.
Yeah, it stitches them all together and you move through space and get a different angle every time. It is truly amazing. I love
Microsoft
it.
Labs are geniuses.
They
Oh,
are.
they are.
But
And-
that thing never went anywhere. Why?
I don't know, but
Anyway, sorry,
But
yeah.
no, but you're absolutely right. No, now I'm reinstalling PhotoSynth after years of not having it installed.
It's so awesome.
But it's an amazing app, and so that was on. I think that was. I don't remember when I wrote that up. If I worked for TUAW or if I was at Mashable at that point. So it had to be
was early
2009.
on, yeah.
It was 2008, 2009. Those companies all knew that they had to be on the iPhone,
Yeah.
and so. If there's a point when Apple should worry and when they should have to look at being cross-platform is when people are no longer coming to them first.
Yeah. We even have Google Now on iOS. We don't have
Of course we
Microsoft
do.
Office yet, but we have Google Now.
But we will.
When did
but we
Google
will.
Now come to iOS?
It's-
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago. It's in the you have to search for the Google Search app, and then Now is integrated into the Google Search app.
But the problem with it is going to be
It's not the same. It's not. as
it's
good.
not persistent like
No.
it is on Android,
it's
right?
not,
You got to
no.
fire
The
it up in
location
order
is
to get
persistent,
it.
but the cards and stuff aren't.
Yeah, but I mean, like with your Android, like for example, my Galaxy Note 2, in the morning, I just turn it on and Google Now pops up
It's like
and it's
your
like
new
your
home
drive
screen,
is
yeah.
12 minutes
Right.
to
no,
work,
no,
and
it's
I
not
didn't
able,
ask
it's
for
not
it.
able to have those
Yeah.
features. But,
Yeah.
but I mean, but this is case in point. The reason that Google will expand, in my opinion, sometimes more effort on the UI, and famously, the Google Plus app came to iPhone
Yep.
before Android.
And all their
a
apps
lot
are
of
really
people-
good looking on iOS now.
They're amazing looking, and what happens then is they tend to update the Android apps next. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a perfect example. I thought that the Android app hadn't been updated for Hangouts because when I searched Hangouts in the Play Store, it came up and said it's installed, hit open, and then Google Talk was still there. Here's the problem with that. I get they have to roll out updates and this and that, but I already have it running on my iPhone.
Yeah.
And that was within moments of launch. So Google, why? Because they get more search revenue from this.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what's really, when it comes to their search revenue money, this is what's completely buttering their bread, so to speak. And Android might eventually overtake that, but for right now, I think it's one of the reasons why they focus so much on the iOS experience and why they were so quick to get an excellent Maps out because they need that data, because that data is currency to them, and they need users to use their apps.
Absolutely.
So, the question just I guess to long way around.
Sorry.
They're accusing Ken, right, of trying to steal our flat panels.
No, I noticed Digital Phil is in the chat room, so I got to say hi, Digital Phil.
Hi, Digital Phil. No, but that's the only time I think that they'll have to start doing
And do you think
cross-platform.
there will be an Office for iOS?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What I think it'll be is it's not going to be how we see it in the traditional state. It'll be an Office 365 app because that's how Microsoft's moving. They're
Yeah.
like Adobe, they're moving to subscription-based software, which I think typically is a good thing. What I would actually
You don't have a problem with CC?
No.
In you, Creative Cloud being subscription-based? Because a lot of people were really upset with
No,
that.
I know, but those are people who pirate it. Those are people who don't buy it anyway. If
Exactly.
if you actually use it and rely on it, no, this is the
I
best thing you've
subscribed
ever
the
heard.
minute that was announced
Here's
last
the
year.
thing.
If you pay for
If you
it,
guys, for those of you who don't know and who have not done the research yet, let me just lay this out for you. If you go to Amazon
Yep.
right now and try and buy
Master Collection,
the big collection of
Yep.
Adobe products,
$2,000.
yeah, it
$8
may
grand
be
in Australia.
It's
$1,600.
$1,600 to $1,800.
Yeah, somewhere in that range, or $50 a month, which means that you could pay for it for at least over 3 years. You
Right.
could pay, and you get consistent
Yes.
updates 100% of the
yes.
time.
And what people have
And
worried
all
about.
the apps you can eat.
Yes,
everything.
Well, and here's the thing: even the stuff that's not integrated with CC, like Lightroom, is part of it.
Yeah.
So even though Lightroom isn't on the same life cycle, and even though it doesn't have all the cloud-centric features, it's still part of it. Every time a new app comes out or an update comes out, it gets updated.
And let's not forget, they also have student pricing.
Yes.
That's $30 a month.
I'm
Right.
paying $30 a month because I had a license for CS6.
yes, and that's what they've done too. And for CS6 people, it's going to be $20 a month for the first year. And I mean, and the thing is that, and I told this to Adobe when they briefed me on the news, because I was one of the people who was briefed before it was announced. And I said, the people that are going to complain are the people who pirate. And yes, you still will be able to find a way to pirate. Why? Because there are certain institutions that can't have public cloud access,
Yeah.
the government education, and they will be getting version of CC that doesn't have the cloud integration, which means as soon as those keys leak and someone finds a way around it, you will have your BitTorrented version of CC. Don't
you
you
worry.
worry.
It'll be on
You will get
Usenet,
it.
all over Usenet.
If it's not
We
already,
don't talk
it'll be
about
there.
Usenet, John.
But the thing is, no, it makes sense, and Microsoft's doing the same thing for Office. The reason I have no problem with what Adobe's doing is they've proven over the last year with the updates they've done on CC that they're coming out super fast. And I've talked to the guys on that team, and I'm not talking about the PR people, I'm talking to the actual developers who are usually not very good at bullshitting and lying. And they're really excited about moving to a more agile update system, because how it used to work is you have to use to update the apps all on the same cadence. So for a Photoshop update to come out, you had to wait for Dreamweaver to be done.
Absolutely.
Now, if the Dreamweaver team wants to add in new support for a web standard framework, or they want to update their jQuery version, or they want to add support for something else, they can just ship it out.
Or
And they
for
don't-
something like Bridge,
Yes.
which is generally a component
Yes.
of
Infrastructure.
You'd have to wait for the whole freaking Photoshop
Right, and now
update
they can
for
just
Bridge.
update, and now you can just update the raw stuff, just
Yeah.
like your raw definitions on the fly. So it's great. And the best part for me is, for years I've been syncing first with a mobile me what was it, .Mac. And now with Dropbox, my settings in Photoshop, because I can't stand to not have my settings and my key bindings different on different machines, that's all now built into Creative Cloud. So when you sign in, even if it's a computer that, like, if it's someone else's computer, you can sign in, get all your settings, sign out,
just
it's
your
all
environment.
flushed. And yeah, in your environment, all of your key bindings, your profiles, your swatches, your presets, it's all done. And like, to me, like, yeah, I think that's the value add. So what Microsoft, I think, will do is they'll do the 365 stuff. So you'll have access to your 365 account. And what they really need to do first, I think, is they need to update their Mac apps so that Office for Mac will let you save in real time to the cloud.
miserable.
Office for Mac is revenge for iTunes for Windows.
It is, but I don't mind Word so much. I think that what I would actually like about Office for Mac is if it would save in real time to SkyDrive the way you can with Office 365 for Windows, then I could not have to use Google Docs at work, because I like the idea of real-time saving to the cloud and having other people have web access to it. What I can't stand is editing and writing a document in a web browser.
Hey Ken, how are we doing on time? 55?
All right, so let's do
So,
the.
yeah.
All right, so let's try. The last thing
I'll
I want
shut
to
up.
ask.
Sorry, guys.
Not at all.
I'm so used to playing producer all day that we don't have a producer here. So I'm trying to.
You're doing both. You're
You're doing both.
multitasking.
You're
Yes, I'm
You're
multitasking.
preemptive multi.
That's right.
So we've been at BlackBerry Live. We've seen the Google I/O keynote. WWDC is in 2.5, 3 weeks. I forget the exact date,
Yep.
but so I want to ask both of you. First, John, what do you think Apple has to do on WWDC? We saw a slew of features from BlackBerry, a slew of new features from Google. It's in Apple's court now.
I don't think Apple has to do jack shizzle. I think that Apple is right now. I don't want them to coast.
Right.
But I think that as long as they don't make any mistakes, currently they don't have to do much. I think that there are a lot of people holding off on buying the Mini until it gets a Retina display, which I don't understand, because I think I love this thing. I don't have a problem with it. But there's some room for incremental improvements in some of
Absolutely.
the devices. And other than that, keep being Apple. I mean, you don't have to do
What
a
about
lot.
iRadio? Richard is saying they need to do iRadio now
No.
because everyone else has a
No,
streaming music.
no. Google,
Really?
Google Music is going to be a failure, just like it's always been a failure. It will not take off. Even though they finally have support of Warner Brothers, there's still EMI, who's not on their platform. It will never. No, Spotify won.
Okay.
Spotify has a better user interface, has a much better selection of music. What Google fundamentally as a company does not understand content. And the faster people realize that, the better they will realize that things like Google TV and Google Music don't work. Why? Because they don't understand content, which means they don't understand the nuances of content deals.
What if
It's
Google
one of the
Music
problems
had
that
600
YouTube has.
buttons on the remote control?
Don't even get me started. I think, and Apple, I don't think would risk their doing a streaming service. I think they'll do a radio service, which could hurt Pandora, or hurt a Songza, who we love. But no,
Everyone loves Songza.
everyone loves Songza. But I mean, Google is not going to make any money on Google Music. The only reason they're launching it is they want to prevent people. They want to try to give people more of a reason
They
to stay
want to
within
do
their
an
ecosystem.
okay enough baseline service so their platform sort of has a checkbox?
They just want to test something out because they
It's
test
cool.
everything out, and then a few years from now they'll cancel it just like they did our blessed RSS reader. Okay.
So, all right, so what do you think? What does Apple need to do? What will they do?
I think that what everyone's expecting, and because it's such an expectation, it's an expectation from the press, it's an expectation from the financial markets, and it's an expectation from the users, is they need to do a total refresh of iOS. Now, that doesn't mean an entire overhaul ground up. That means that it needs to have a refreshed look and feel, maybe some features that are more in line with what some other things are doing.
So interface, not architecture.
Exactly. And then maybe make some architectural changes or surface some architectural changes that could allow for better inter-app communication and allow to do some of the cool things that are happening now. Google Now is awesome, but it's really nothing more than what Siri does. The difference is that Siri doesn't surface all that stuff for you in an easy to look way. Now does Apple need to do that? I'm not sure. But show off the fact that they can do some of these like whiz bang things.
Yeah.
I think they need a few of those, but I think that people are expecting an overhaul of the interface from a visual standpoint.
OS 10?
You know what? I think that they need to make Mountain Lion was compared to Snow Leopard, but it really wasn't. There were a lot of changes.
Yeah.
I think that they need to just give that the Snow Leopard treatment and finalize some things. Maybe fix full screen app view, that sort of stuff. You know, as soon as do that, because frankly, there are some people who are still on Snow Leopard, but they're fewer and further between. If they could fix some of those core issues, I think OS 10's in a great position. You know, OS 11 is what I call kind of the merging of the two, you know, platforms, and when that happens, that's obviously going to be another paradigm shift. But I think that right now, you know, 10.9, whatever they end up calling it, I think that they just need to reaffirm the strengths of the OS.
Do you agree with the OS 10 stuff?
Yeah, when you say OS 10, what I think of is I think of my laptop and how I use it. I don't have a problem with the OS per se, but it's some of the apps. For example, Final Cut still has a very long way to go.
Yeah.
Final Cut 10, just for
It's
feature
getting better.
parity with Final Cut 7, not to mention the fact that I think they're losing professionals
they have.
to Adobe
They have.
in
Adobe,
droves.
no.
They may be losing us to it,
Well,
by
actually,
the way.
to be completely honest, Adobe just, I mean, and I checked the numbers of NPD at this point, and this is the first time this has happened since Final Cut really took over the market, I guess, in 2000, about a year after it came out, is that Premiere is now the #1 NLE.
I believe it.
That's really scary. They messed up big time with that product.
Oh, I don't think they messed up.
No,
I
but
don't think they cared. I think they were happy to lose that segment of the market. I truly believe that, because they weren't selling that much. I mean, if you compare the mass
In terms of Apple
quantities
amounts
of gear that they
That's a good
sell
point.
to their high-end...
You know what I think it does, though, is it kind of ruins kind of the cusp of the company. One of the reasons that users a lot of times I think feel comfortable using something like iMovie or using like a Mac or buying an iPhone is because they know the professionals
That's
use it.
right.
And so it's one of those things where even if it doesn't make you a ton of money, it's the prestige factor
You're right.
that you keep it supported.
It's the
Oh,
John
you're right.
Siracusa supercar.
But they
Yes.
forgot. They
Right.
forgot.
They did.
They're Apple. They don't need it. So
They don't need it, but I think that's why they've been trying to win
Maybe
them back.
they do.
I think that's why they're trying to win them back and try to improve things.
Too
Again,
late.
It's too
Too
late.
late.
You know, we'll see with the next. Actually, they have 4K is giving them a small window. Because we're still about a year away from most workstations being converted. If they could come out with some stuff with some super
If
4K
Final
support,
Cut could go to 11.
It just, if it could go to 11. But the problem is that
if
there
they did
are a
something on the
lot
hardware
of...
rendering side, if they did some real-time rendering stuff that was better than what Adobe or Avid's doing.
They're just not going to, because Adobe and Avid have access to the entire PC. I mean, the HP has machines that crush. I wouldn't even compare the Mac Pros to some of those HP machines, and they will never catch up in that arena. So I fear they've already lost. There are people like us who we make video, that's all we do for a living. And when you have us, when you have our producers and editors saying, yeah, I think we could switch to PC. Oh my God! These were the guys who 2 years ago.
Or at the very least, we could switch to you know CS7 or CC. You know,
We can Hackintosh
that's
it,
what I
John.
mean,
We
yeah.
can Hackintosh it.
Yeah, wow, it's unbelievable.
All right, so we could keep going all night, but I don't want Ken to just fall like,
Yeah.
over.
Poor Ken, poor Ken.
We love you,
So-
Ken. Hope you're feeling better, Ken.
I'm just going to ask,
like
just to
that.
finish this up, John, where can people find out more about you and about GeekBeat?
You know, well, you can go to geekbeat.tv, but of course, my favorite place to hang out nowadays is Google+. So
I thought it was Smurf Village.
Yeah, I do love Smurf Village. I'm
I
very
like
tall
Smurf
there.
Village.
But yeah, just look for John P. or John Pose, because you don't want to spell Pose as ZDs.
No.
No.
John P. John
doesn't
Pose.
want you to spell Pose
You'll
as
find me on Google+, or google.com/plus John P. That's it, plus John
Absolutely.
P.
Plus John P.
Christina, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at film_girl. On Google Plus, I'm plus Christina Warren. And I'm on Facebook, other interwebs. And of course, you can read my articles, including my opinions on some of the Google stuff that I'll be writing later tonight, as well as everything going on in the BlackBerry Live universe, Mashable.com.
Mashable.com. Awesome. You can find me at Rene Ritchie, because I still use the Twitters too sometimes. Plus Rene Ritchie. I don't have a fancy name like you and Phil Nickinson.
Vanity one?
No, I don't have a vanity URL. But you can find me also at iMore.com, and you can find everyone here at, well, not everyone here, but everyone here at Mobile Nations/shows. Thanks, guys. Thanks, John. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.
You guys are fantastic. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Ken.
Ken.
Ken, who's being a total trooper, even though he doesn't feel that
He just
great.
gave us a
Awesome.
thumbs up. It felt like a NASA thumbs up.
He's awesome. Bye, guys.
And thank you, chat room. You guys were absolutely fantastic.
Guys,
You
the
were
best.
handsome. You were pretty.
You were awesome.
Charming.
You smell
You're
good.
awesome. They do. They smell good. Almost like bananas, like at that ride yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Despicable Me.
Despicable
ride.
Me ride. Fantastic.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Especially you. The one right there. You. Yes.
Right down there.
Yeah.
Corner.
That one over. You kind of creeped me.